God bless you. This is Ellen Mongan. It's time for Deacon and Dear. Hello, Deacon.
Hi, dear.
Good to see you. We have spent a lot of time working on the shows, and this year's going to be really exciting. We're going to have some guests on the show. We're trying to get some couples on with us, like the time we had Jana and JR Bomb Break, and we had so much enjoyable fun with them. There are couples that meet on the air to do like a date. We get on the air to talk about being Catholic. So, Deacon Pat, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, we thought we'd talk about our Bishop Parke's, in the Savannah Diocese, put out a paper in the Gaudete Sunday, put out a letter talking about the synodality which has been going on in the church, in which he went around and talked to a lot of people throughout the diocese, which is a big geographic diocese. It's most of the state of Georgia. And
right? He went to every deanery?
I believe so.
He went twice to our deanery, to St. Teresa and to Holy Trinity, our church, the Church of the Most Holy Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
And people gathered, many came.
Right. And so he put out what he sees as the focus for the coming year for the diocese. And obviously each parish has to look at their situation in terms of how they deal with it. So if you are in the Savannah Diocese, I would encourage you to go to the website and read his letter.
Even if you're not, it's very informative.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah, I think, and his main focus is presence. Starts out with talking about, which is really what Christmas is all about, and why he's come out in terms of the gift to us at Christmas is the presence of Jesus.
Sure.
Not things like myrrh, frankincense. Those may be good things, but the idea really is the presence of Jesus in our world that leads to our salvation and restoring our relationship with God the Father, so that we can have a good relationship with the Father, with each other, and truly be present to each other. So he starts out in the letter with that kind of focus, and my lovely wife has written several articles and has emphasized many times the fact that what's really important, birthdays, whatever, is not so much as the thing that is given, but the presence of the people, the family, being present, knowing that there is family to care for us and each other, and loving each other.
You know, that's what I think about our family, that when you come into a gathering with our family, this month we have several birthdays. We have a baptism soon coming up. We have Christmas Eve, and New Year's Day, and New Year's Eve, and people come to our gatherings, that's what they see. The presence of Christ, the presence of love for one another. Right, honey?
Yes.
Even if they no matter what country they are, if they speak our language or not, that's a good fruit. What presence do you bring when you come to church or to a home gathering? And that's a good thing to think about. So we're going to go right into some of the points he made. Besides, there's 3 R's, correct?
Well, that's what the whole year has been about, was to reflect on where we are, what's going on, what are the needs, renew in terms of, okay, then what changes do we need to make, and then rejoice in terms of rejoicing about what gifts we do have and what things we do have and the opportunities that we have. And he gives us several specifics, and the big picture is the whole call to discipleship, the whole idea of Mary and Elizabeth, Mary going to visit, what did she say? She said that when it comes to Jesus being in her womb, let it be done to me according to your will,
Yeah, I love
Father,
that. I love
Lord. And so our call to be like her and to be like her son, Jesus.
I think one of my favorite things about that particular scripture is the fact that Mary was mentored by Elizabeth in a way. That's my thought. It's not written in the scripture, but she went to be with Elizabeth in her latter days. She had never been pregnant, neither one of them, and she could ask questions. You know, the mentoring is the older one teaches the younger one, and I think that that was one of the reasons why God wrote that. Picture this, Mary, full of grace, but full of maybe nausea, early pregnant, and taking that ride over there to visit her cousin and be there.
Probably walk.
So what are we going to talk about first? Our first subject after presence is reflect.
Well, his theme is is that we're all called to discipleship, to be more like Jesus. That's what discipleship really means, in our particular circumstances. Like a mother being a disciple and her call to discipleship is different than a missionary or a doctor, or, so. But we're all called to become more like Jesus in whatever circumstances we're involved in, and the bishop makes the point that if we really are thinking and contemplating about our relationship with God, as we all want a deeper personal relationship with God, and he gives 5 areas as a framework for developing that personal relationship, becoming more like Jesus, that call to be like him.
Yes, and I just think it fits in the scriptures. The church in the beginning, we went to church, the priest was facing backwards, and we memorized Latin. I was a little girl when I was still Latin. And then we didn't really understand faith. We just wrote prayers. But then as time goes on, God calls people to know not only to hear the word of God, read it, Mass, like our mom says, we don't know our faith. Oh, I do, because I read the word of God. And then we learned to put it into practice. But the scripture, it says in Titus 2, it says, the older one shall teach the younger one, and the older man shall teach the younger man. And that's a discipleship of vocation, of marriage. And I'm all about the mentoring, as we know, because that's my main thing, is to give the woman the joy of being a mom and a wife first and mom. And the husband, Pat, is a deacon and a doctor and a father and husband and all those. And he passes down the faith. He teaches a lot. Most churches he does a lot of RCIA and teaches a lot about the faith and the apologetics and different things. So it's so important, I think, what the bishop decided to point out, because if you just know about God, then you just know about God. Like, a lot of people know about my husband. He's a deacon. He gets up there and they think they know him. I always say, be on your best behavior, because someone at the grocery store knew you. As I'm going, hello, I'm in the ministry. He says, I know your husband. So you never know who's watching you, but still, not only for that reason. You want to know God for yourself, like Job did, because then you understand the word comes alive, and you read the scripture, everything comes alive. So the 5 points are, as I try to I do want to say that discipleship for moms and husbands is Titus 2.
Well, so he starts out with discover beauty by entering into the presence of God, and of course, one of the primary ways we do that is the Mass. And that's our highest prayer and our biggest prayer. And so entering into the Mass and receiving Jesus there and spending time before the Eucharist. But he starts out in each of those 5 areas, which is, to me, is so important. And I try to emphasize that whenever I'm teaching or giving a homily, is because our American mindset, we often want to just be able to reduce things to some concrete information or knowledge, but what he emphasizes, acknowledge the gift of mystery before each of the 5 areas, in that we can't explain everything with words. God is way beyond us. We need to understand that, and the idea that we can just explain it in a scientific manner, God and what he's doing is, that's ridiculous, because God is beyond us. He created our science for our benefit. He's above it. He created it. And so it works because he set it up to work right as science and the scientific principle. But science can't explain God. God explains science.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah. So
That's a scientist.
Acknowledge the gift of mystery.
Oh, I like that. No, we don't have to go too far. All we have to do is show up at the Church of Most Holy Trinity, and we go in, and the Mass begins, and we feel that, not feel like a feeling. We know God is there. It's just the beauty of the church, and the beauty of the stations, and also the stained glass windows, and then the smell of the incense. Our full senses embrace the Mass in such a way that we tear up sometimes, don't we? Or we go to an event like we had a symphony come, and so beautiful, just to your ears, your heart begins to beat, like John the Baptist, the womb of Elizabeth.
The first three areas, or four areas, he doesn't have a lot of topics within each area, but I'll quickly read those because I don't think we need to have a big long discussion for each one, because we could spend probably a couple hours if we get into a big discussion about each one. But I'm going to mention ones that stand out to me, and then what stands out to you.
I'm having a pin problem today. Please forgive me. I go like a Lord. He pinned it.
Relish his precious gift of grace. Marvel at his mercy and compassion. Talk to him conversationally in prayer. And I think that's a good point for most of us. Some people think that, it's we need to have lots of formal prayer. But throughout the day, I try to talk to God, because he's there. He's with you. His presence is there all the time. And to have a conversation, asking forgiveness for when you get, maybe you're being difficult for other people, or saying things you shouldn't be saying, or doing things you shouldn't be doing. And throughout the day, asking forgiveness and acknowledge his presence, or thanking him, or saying, give me patience, or throughout the day. Not just at the beginning of the day. It's good to have a set aside time. But just like with your wife or spouse, you have conversation throughout the day.
Yes.
And that the bishop is encouraging us to do that. And one of the main focuses for the church, he sees, that, so we're talking about this as individuals, but then the church itself discovers beauty and enters in the presence of God through the liturgy and worship at Mass and any other rites that we do, in such a way that it should bring light and joy to our hearts, mind, and soul.
Sure.
That should be the goal of our worship and all the rites that we do in the church.
And I think that when I'm in the church, for sure, I spend more time closing my eyes and listening for God than I do talking to God during the day. When I hear God's voice, I light up and I try to obey him. Sometimes we don't, we try our best to hear and then obey. And I always repeat this. I learned a special lesson from Rachel Balducci in one of her books, Simplify Your Life, is to ask the Lord first thing in the morning, what are 3 things you want me to do? Because being an overachiever, AAA personality, I can think I'm hearing God say 101 things. And sometimes I'll just have to go, pause. That's enough for now. Overachievers have to do that. Underachievers have to go like, whoa, do something for me to do. And God says that we have to obey. So I think it's very important to, those of you who have busy minds or like to look at the little baby in front of you, or the cute little clothes on someone in front of you, you want to say instead, close your eyes and just rest in the Lord. If you think you're doing it to be holy, no, you're doing it so you don't sin against him. And I really do believe in quieting your soul in the morning and taking time for him. I say my prayer time in the middle of the night sometimes to just quiet my soul and get to know what he's saying versus what I'm saying or thinking. It's very important, both listening and talking. Do you think? Talking and listening, we both do both, I'm sure. But it's good. Right, and reading the saints, it helps you, right? To see the beauty. And the saints some of them were not really pretty people. They were maybe people, just average people, ordinary people. And on the outward, you wouldn't even know they were saintly, and then you would watch them. Chance to watch people.
Some of them, before they became saintly, were bad people. But
we read some of the saints and we're like, whoa, we are so in need of help, Lord. The things they did, and marvelous deeds, marvelous deeds.
So the second point he makes in terms of framework is understanding truth. Obviously, for us, understanding the faith. Jesus is the truth, but we have to know him. We can't just know about him, we need to know him in terms of theology is, the understanding of our truths of our faith. But at the same time, we have to know that it's not just a head knowledge, which I think the church fathers would be disappointed in most of our theologians this day, because it seems to be some kind of academic exercise or whatever. No, you lived your faith. We live our theology. And so understanding the faith is so important. And again, under that, he says the first thing, acknowledge the gift of mystery. That we only understand partially, as Paul talks about, because God is infinite and way beyond us as individuals. And so we have the catechism, which is this wonderful guide. I always tell people, if you have a question, go to the catechism, because almost everything you're going to ask about our faith, it's there. Sometimes you need help in terms of applying the faith to specific situations. So by going to somebody who's very knowledgeable, a priest, a deacon, or a sister, a religious, those are all things that you can do. So, and you can't have a good conscience, he points out, unless you know what the faith, in terms of reading the sacred scripture and the catechism, in terms of knowing what the moral truths are, in terms of how we should behave and act. That there is sin, there will be sin until the second coming.
Don't you remember, I don't know if we're going about mystery, I think remember your vocation, because you have to live your vocation, right? And you can't be, like when I first started out with the Lord, I thought I was supposed to pray all day long in my head, and I was like praying that you need to be there. And if your mother, especially mother of little ones, you need to be attentive. We have one child that just had a new baby, and they're learning about how little sleep you get. That's part of the vocation, dressing up for your husband or for your wife, that's part of your vocation, because you're not priests and nuns. And all the saints that we read about, they could do what they did because they were really living the vocation of being a nun or priest. And that's a mystery, why some are kind of like nuns and pray all day on one side, and if you follow the voice of the Lord, you choose the vocation he has for you. So that's my little tip, honey. Because I just want to throw that in, because I think it's mystery. You find the Lord, you get all excited about Jesus, just like the disciples, and then he told some people, go back, love your family, do what you're supposed to do. Francis encouraged some that weren't called to be in a contemplative form or build the church that way, but to go and love their family and love their children, grandchildren.
Third, inspire goodness by fostering relations of faith, hope, and charity. Again, acknowledge the mystery of that.
Sure.
In terms of, it requires grace and gift of faith, and hope and charity. Without God, people can do things like that, but goodness in our soul, and when you're a child and baptized, it's there, but you can squash it down so that faith, hope, and charity don't become evident in a particular person. And we want to foster that, help that to grow in each of us and each individual. So, and care for the least, the last, and the lost. He mentions that. And then practice good stewardship of God's gifts and honor his creation. These are all things that are important in terms of our relationships and growing the church, because I think when you look at the world today, what seems to be a big problem is that we have not given this image of God. The reason we talk about sin and hell is not because we're out to punish people, but we're out to help people and save people from their sin, because sin causes pain and suffering. And we've not done, it seems to me, a very good job of communicating that to people.
You know, what we read today about Mother Angelica and about some sin has consequences. I mean, also it has consequences. Some have lifelong consequences. We have to listen to the Lord and repent quickly, go to confession, because we don't want to be doing things that are, why? My mom asked why, you know, why? She has tried to understand some of the teachings that we're bringing forth that are totally Catholic. But you know what? Everyone is just growing, and we have to be able to be able to give wisdom and able to take wisdom as well. I think it's very important. So what do you
And so the church as a group, what do we do is outreach and missionary work, you know, charity work. All those things are things that shows that we are a people of faith, hope, and mercy and love. And as the bishop says, is having embraced the good news, we are naturally called to share that same good news with others. If we really believe in our relationship with Christ and what He's done for us and are thankful for it, then we should want to share it and not just keep it to ourselves and be afraid to talk about it. And that can be a challenge, more so today than it was 20 years ago, because people who are against our church and faith will actively attack us. But why wouldn't you want to share something that is a pearl of great price, that is good? And as he talks about the goodness in terms of, I always like to say the church is full of treasures. When I became a convert, it just occurred to me that there are so many treasures in the church. And if you haven't gotten excited about being a Catholic or Christian, keep looking, because my goodness, there's so much in the church. The history, the saints, the teachings, and the scriptures, and and of course the Mass. But you know, being open to the treasures in the church, and because there are so many treasures in the church, and you could spend your whole life looking for them, and you're not going to find them all. And
some for seasonally may you be doing novenas, or maybe you're doing a rosary every day, and then when it becomes a bondage to not do it. But we're talking about witnessing and being missionaries. As a mom, you really can be a witness.
Right.
The way you train your children, we many times will encourage someone in, like, say, we're staying in a motel, and we'll see a little mom trying to feed her little ones, and I'll say, you're a good mom. That's being a witness. So you've done a good job. We know how hard it is. We know how hard it is to get them all dressed, to get them all. We know it's in the job description that you're doing great. A lot of times they're discouraged. That's being a witness. Another way I'm doing a witness, and I have a lot of persecution for it. I send out a lot of Christmas cards. Some people think I'm boasting, so I've altered my Christmas card to be one page about our life, the top 10, and the other one about message from the Lord, and it does witness. Now, people are lonely. Many are lonely. I know one lady out in Pennsylvania, and she doesn't even get to go to Mass. So, you know, she's elderly, doesn't get to go to Mass, and trying to follow up with the ones that God puts on your heart. I mean, if you have like widows,
absolutely, yeah,
widows or orphans that you know that are just like having struggling with their faith. Many lost loved ones this year. Many of our friends passed away, and many of our relatives passed away this year. And you know it's tough for the one that remains behind. So that's being a witness, to send a little card, a letter, a Mass card. Or I thought Father Ingram did a great job in his homily, in his bulletin, and he wrote a little exhortation about gifts. It was so powerful, because he gave not only why our gifts are to be used, but also how to use them.
And Father Ingram is the pastor at St. Teresa of Avila Church in Grovetown, Georgia.
Right near
us.
So we step into his church a lot to feel
But part of that is witness, as Ellen says. It's not just witness, we have to use words too. Good news means the words. Jesus didn't just get up there and do miracles. Most of his time he was preaching and sharing with people. So if you want to be more like Jesus, you need to be willing to share. That doesn't mean you have to get on the street corner and preach. But if you're trying to be like Jesus, you need to be willing to share the good news and what he is. And as the bishop goes on to say, we are not called to be mere individual consumers of our Catholic faith. Rather, we must learn to be sharers of it so that ongoing conversion is of paramount importance in our homes, cities, diocese, nation, and world.
What I like about that, though, is the fact that goes back to discipleship.
Mm-hmm.
We have to know our faith to share it, but we start out as babies, just like our little baby, grandbaby, and then we learn from the people that are bigger, and then we go and share it. We can always share something.
Right.
A lot of times the new in the faith have been all excited, they share the joy.
Mm-hmm.
But to study under someone, find a
Mhm.
mentor or a deacon or a priest that's giving a Bible study or a class, we all have to continue, we're on a continuing learning curve in the Catholic faith. We're never going to know it all, do you think,
Mhm.
honey?
Uh-huh.
As much as you learn, we'll never know it all. So we have to learn the faith from someone that's gone before us and to embrace the faith. Maybe you always didn't know Vina, it never worked for you, try it again. Maybe you say the rosary and you fall asleep, try it again.
Mhm.
Maybe you went to Mass and you said, do you have to go to Mass every day? No, you don't. That's where the grace is. If you're having struggles with things, you can find the grace in the sacraments, try it again. Trying things again. If at first you don't succeed, try again. God is bigger than any of your disappointments or things
Mhm.
you've done in your life that did not work for you. Hey, I tried again. But we don't want to be Einstein. If it's not working over and over again in one season, go for something else for a while
Mhm.
and then try it again. You want to be like, this is going to work if it kills me. God is bigger. So we wrote about now. I'm sorry, Pat is leading this one, and I didn't look at my notes because I really, when I'm the filling girl, I like to fill in, and when I'm the one leading, I like to lead. So he's really studied this document about the faith, and I just want to give a shout out to the bishop who took the time to write this, and it was well thought out. He listened to everybody, which I thought was brilliant for a new bishop to go to parish because we are so huge and listen for like something for hours, each person go on the mic and saying what they say. Now me, I was late. So I sent a letter. I did make the deadline, and I thought, well, that's okay. The last should be first, the first should be last. And I sent up some of my books and a document because my heart is strong families, strong marriages, and strong nation. And I wanted to show him that how I believe in. I hadn't read the document when I sent it. When the document came, I go, that's confirmation. Discipleship, mentoring, your vocation. I'm filling in the hours you speak up. Yeah, we have this thing we do. We touch each other, right, to say it's your turn or that I'm done. Then sometimes we touch each other all day long. Anyways, like our arm or give a kiss. So I don't know if he's ready to go or he's just being affectionate. Other than that, next time we pin this dress, but this is embarrassing, y'all. But you know me, no bloopers. We go with what we got. I do keep fixing it. It's a new dress, and I thank you, Caitlin. I love the blue dress, but next time we're going to sew it up. This is not a humorous talk, but really, sometimes things happen. The best laid plans. So, Deacon Pat, take it away.
Well, then there's also evangelization.
That's my favorite. I'm an evangelist.
The thing is, there's a lot that he covers under that. Empowering Catholics to live their baptismal call through the development of a personal relationship with Christ.
Yes.
Promote a culture of life. Prioritize catechesis formation and pastoral care. And several others, again, that you can go online and read. But one of the other ones that stood out to me is emphasize the understanding of family as the domestic church.
Yeah.
We see this attack upon family in our culture, in our society. Well, of course, the devil wants to tear the family apart because that is the domestic church. That's where children first learn their faith.
That's right.
And so if you tear down the family, and we see that happening, is then people don't learn about their faith and they don't know anything about Jesus.
And be a little gentle though. If you're a Christian couple and you have children, especially thinking teenage level, I'd be willing to ask for forgiveness throughout the day if you do something wrong. But also teenagers, be gentle in the fact that they're all imperfect, just like you are. They're doing the best they can. There's nothing worse than a person being discouraged by their own family members. I mean, I'll tell you that from the heart and from the soul, that you want to be encouraged, and unless it's sin, maybe just overlook that and offer it up and say, well, they just stepped my foot for the third time, and I'm just going to forgive them. Then the big stuff, like you know, the 10 Commandments, that's when you maybe want to say to your parents, whoa, whoa, isn't it in the Bible? Say it with a little bit of kindness.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it's the best way to go. Because, you know, the faith is supposed to be something that builds us up, encourages us, and also corrects us.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we think about the evangelism? Because I have some ideas about that. I love
Well,
evangelism.
as we talked about the domestic church,
Mhm.
and inspire hospitality, develop models for small groups.
Mhm.
We've done that actually before at Holy Trinity in the past.
I like it.
There were Lenten groups. It was hard for a lot of people to maintain small group interactions throughout the year, but they were willing to focus for a certain period of time, and that seemed to be fruitful.
And some groups stay till this day, just so you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
And we've gone, well, like 15 years, we come and go. I'd say we've been gone from the Holy Trinity for a while, and you know what? That shows the Lord is on that. There's
Mhm.
also, we have a prayer chain that Mary Garner Mertz and I started, I'm thinking 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I left town, and Mary Gardner, that was her calling, she was phenomenal. And she brought over to St. Mary's Help Christian, or St. Mary's on the hill. And to this day, if you want prayer, you can call and put your, it's in intercession prayer chain, it still goes strong. One lady was so sweet, honey, I can't think of her last name now, but she
Mhm.
went and she said, she felt like that was her ministry, her and Bernice Phillips. They
Mhm.
took the prayers everywhere they went, and they were fervent to intercede their brothers and sisters. They didn't even know half the people. So these are ways to evangelize and also to find your role in the body of Christ.
Mhm.
What am I supposed to do? Am I to be an usher? Am I to be a teacher, a preacher? What am I to do in my church? But I'm gonna tell you what you shouldn't be doing.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be doing nothing. Like I said, find your
Exactly.
role. And if you can't find your role,
Mm-hmm.
stop and pray. Stop and pray and ask the Lord and help him to guide you. He will guide you to the spot. I really believe in, remember, retreats and sabbaticals. And I made, today my article came out of Catholic Bomb, and it's about take January as a month to discern and to be on a sabbatical. Don't come in a lot in January. You're tired after, especially your mother of many, after all the wrapping the gifts and making the cookies and all the fun of parties. You may be a little tired. Take a sabbatical month
Mm-hmm.
and rest it up, but then come back stronger and then go and do what God's asking you to do. So that's my conclusion, but I again was waiting for you to intro.
Well,
I like conversations. I do conversation, Pat does like a teacher.
I think, yeah, the other, he mentions clergy and consecrated life, that in terms of, do we tell our children, have you considered becoming a priest or a nun?
Yes.
Or somebody who seems like to be a good, solid Catholic, and encourage them, maybe have you thought about being a deacon? Those are all things that we should be doing on a regular basis.
But then again, sorry, this is my strong feeling. If a parent decides, well, this kid will be a great priest, he looks like a priest, acts like a priest, I think he should be a priest, and you encourage them too much without them being able to discern on their own in prayer with God alone, and maybe a priest like Father Brandon was so awesome about discerning, then don't go forward, boys and girls, moms and dads and teenagers, unless you have a clear word from God. Because or marry this person, I do this to my kids to joke around, but then Pat calls me a yentle and I just stop. Because what if they go for that person and marry that person, it's not the one, just on the basis of you encouraging, because yeah, she looks like I should be good in the family. I can't tell you how many times I made mistakes like that. And none of my kids went, luckily they don't listen to me. And none of them did what I said, because I don't know if they've been happy. As they become adults, then they need to make adult decisions, right?
Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of a brief, relatively brief summary. You could probably, like I started out saying, spend a lot of time talking about it. My hope is that our deacons will get together with Father and talk about some of these issues and what we think needs to go on in our parish, and maybe you might even consider should you do a survey in terms of people, which we've done in the parish many years ago, in terms of, well, what do people see as their needs? Because you have this global picture, and the majority may need something, but then there are other smaller groups of people who may be overlooked, and so that's a real challenge, is to try to meet the needs of all.
because I think the singles, shout out for the singles. That's why I really believe in, some people believe in like singles and couples mixed in the small groups, but I believe in the same, like some people have women's ministry, it's all women, the men's ministry, all men. The singles to be together, they share each other's burdens and be there. I think it's important for the couples to have other couples they can relate to. So whatever your church needs, maybe the one to start it, right? But pray it through. Don't just jump out of the boat and say, you know, I have one child. I think I want to be the leader of the moms group. So get the experience and the knowledge first. Get to know the Lord in a deeper way. Then ask Him. Sometimes you feel like He's going to do one thing and something else. I was never a candidate that said I want to sit home and write because I'm kind of an extrovert, especially in the old days, but I had a lot of kids. And then when God called me to write, I had to keep praying it through and keep doing it. And then God confirmed it so many ways. Now I go, I love being a writer. I could stay home and think and pray. And I learned that I was partly introverted in the midst of it. You may not find your gift in the body of Christ or your contribution to the church. It's not a one size fits all kind of gift. It has to be what God has put together for your life. And then you know your purpose. Then you go forth with it. And someone says, want to be an usher? You go, love to be an usher, but really in church. I close my eyes and pray. And someone else goes, I love to be an usher. This is great. It fits me. Please know that. There's no one size fits all. Your God is a mighty God who made you, created you to be you.
Mm-hmm. And so before we close, I'm put in a plug for my wife. As she said, she's written several books, but she is published and available on Amazon, Ellen Mongan, and Who Will Wear the Crown,
I love that book.
Kids book, and then
with
four
Young, my granddaughter.
Right, and Four for the Mountaintop, and
both Bible studies.
And then Mom's Best Wisdom Bible study.
Walk with God.
Walk with God.
So, and Pat is also available because he does like to give little mini retreats and missions. And this is not a plug for us, really. This is how we use our gifts. It's how we use our gifts. So we come out on the air. We say what we feel like the Lord put on our heart. And then we beg. We say, we're Francis. We want to build the church. We want to build it one person at a time. And we want to be there if you need a touch of God in the air of like retreat, prayer meetings, whatever you need.
End of life talks.
Pat does end of life talks. He likes doing that,
Being a doctor
I
and
would
a
never pick
deacon.
that. He likes to do that. But I also I want to say the last thing, honey, is that we're never going to finish. We're going to talk all day today. I want to be used by the Lord to go to the stables. That's what he told me. I thought it was kind of an odd word. I was in Florida where, I was looking for the camels and the goats and the pigs, but as I was, go to the stables. I want you to go to the stables because no church is too little and no church is too big to be able to come alive in Christ and come alive with someone that knows, Lord, speaking about our faith and a love for our faith and a love for motherhood. Marriage. Pat will go with me to the stables, right?
Yes,
he likes animals better than me.
and the other thing that the word that Ellen got, which is so true, is the poor in the pews. So who is in your pews? Who need you? Who need you?
That's right. Who needs to hear like
the
a
word?
touch from
Who
God?
needs to hear the good news? Who needs a helping hand?
That's right. Thank you,
So,
Deacon. You led well. Usually you lead all the time. Otherwise, I throw in the little tidbits, but I think it was very good. So, we're
traveling along, singing a song, side by side. God bless you.
Happy Christmas.